Hello and welcome to the Game On Expert Interviews. I am Jean Berry, and I host these Game On and Expert Interviews because I know that business isn't just about the fun and games that we create here. Sometimes it's about mindset, sometimes it's about money, sometimes it's about marketing, sometimes it's about your physical health. And so I love bringing experts here to help grow all parts of you because ultimately that grows your business. And today is no exception. We have an extraordinary guest that I know that you will love. And I'm just pulling up her little introduction here. Here we go. So, Dr. Elena Estanol is a #1 best-selling author, a high-performance psychologist, and intuitive business mentor who has been up-leveling speakers, writers, performers, athletes, coaches, and purpose-based entrepreneurs to become extraordinary beings and legendary leaders for the last 16 years. She has such incredible systems that allow um, average people to unlock and unleash their unlimited potential and take that courageous action to really defy ordinary and become extraordinary in both life and business. I am so excited to know Dr. Elena and to call her my friend and business partner over the last 4 years. So I can't wait for everyone to meet you. Welcome. Welcome, Dr. Elena.
Thank you so much. It's just such a pleasure and a delight to be here with you. I feel so honored, and I feel honored to be your friend and your
Aw.
business partner.
So we had to really try to narrow down what we were going to talk about today because when we get on the phone, usually it goes on, and then it rolls into something else because it's something brilliant that we need to talk about. So you are going to be privy to our inside conversation, and yet we will try to keep it, around the topic that we said we were going to talk about. So
Yes,
if you are
we'll
here with
try to
us
stay on
live,
track.
if you are here with us live today, if you will give us a hey or hi and let us know that you are here. As always, you'll be able to ask questions or give comments along the way. If there's anything that you would like some clarification on, absolutely add that as well. Welcome, welcome. Oh, we have Kitty too with us.
Yeah, so he never does this while I'm on the phone or anything, but today I said, I'm going to do an interview, so I want you to be quiet. And I thought he would just go sit on the couch like he normally does, and he came and crawled in my lap. So we'll see how long that lasts.
Well, beautiful. Inside of my 40 Days and 40 Nights program, we are doing support deeply right now from all of the spirit animals, angels, elementals, all those kind of things are definitely showing up in our world. So it's not surprising to me, and I'm sure to the people inside of the Master Club, that we're going to have some good power animal energy along here as well. So cool.
I've been long called a kitty whisperer, but I think that has expanded to being an animal whisperer. So I'm enjoying that.
Beautiful. Hi, Laura. Hi, Lois. Hi, Angie. So glad that you're here live. And so I'm wondering if you can, first of all, Elena, tell our watchers a little bit about how you got here. Like, I know that your story is really incredible, and even how we met had all the things of listening to your intuition and seeing the threads of the universe come through. So, what I'm thinking, okay, let's get this
I'm
really
like,
succinct,
wait,
but
yeah, let's narrow.
narrow it down a lot. You had actually, though, a fairly traumatic part of your life that then shifted you to the space of truly listening to your intuition. And so you had become a psychologist and you were incredible at what you did. And then you had some things happen that had you say, you know what? I'm more than just this.
Yeah.
And there's more to just living like this than that. Hi, Joy.
So,
So yeah.
so I love your question. So I'll share this little piece because I think that it will give context. I feel like as a child, I was very tuned in, and I was very intuitive, and I could see my spirit guides and had conversations with them, and had really powerful prophetic dreams. And both my parents were physicians. And so in my world, all of that was sort of woo woo and nutty. And then I became a psychologist. And so, as a psychologist, you know, anytime that you have people talking about seeing, hearing, or sensing things that are not actually there, we tend to categorize those things as in the scope of, you know, delusions and some type of mental illness, right? And so I had been operating very much in this 3D paradigm, being a psychologist, being very science-based, very, you know, very left-brained, and then I broke my leg, and then I had compartment syndrome on both my legs that basically led me to have a period of 3 years where I was completely disabled. And I talk a little bit about this because in some ways I was literally brought down to my knees in every sense of the world. And I worked with so many other practitioners, and I think that when I felt like I had gone to every practitioner that I could have gone to get help and wasn't getting the help that I needed, I thought, well, I guess I could try a Reiki healer. I guess I could try an energy. Like, it's not going to hurt me. And, you know, so it was sort of like this like last ditch thing. And then that really opened up this entire world. And she said to me, and it was important for me because she said to me, if you could just commit to meditating every day, you would just get your answers and you would not need me. And that intrigued me. I had never committed to anything, to doing anything every day. But that intrigued me greatly. And so I did. And I started doing that, and I started receiving incredible downloads and ideas. And, you know, the entire intuition course like came to me. And I was scared. I was so scared. I don't know any of you could relate to this, like being very attached, my ego being very attached to my professional identity and to, you know, I'm a psychologist. You know, I remember having these conversations. I'm like, but this is not my expertise, you know, and they were like, precisely. I'm like, precisely what? Like, and so, you know, so I said, I didn't feel I could do this on my own. And so I said, so I need help. I need a partner that would be willing to do this with me. And so I prayed and I asked, and I said, who would be a good partner? And Jean's face appeared to me in my field of vision. Jean and I had met at that point. I think we had met once or twice, maybe, at an event, and a JVX event. I think somebody had introduced us, and it was like, oh, nice to meet you. Like, we had like all of, I don't know, 2 conversations, maybe, you know, and your like face appeared to me, and I was like, I know who that is. And I was like, okay. You know, and I reached out and we had a conversation, and I said, hey, like, I have this idea, and would you, you know, and you're like, that sounds fun. And that was what, like 4 or 5 years ago, right? And
It
now here we
was.
are.
It was. And so I want to back up for just a second because I know that, and you did definitely abbreviate the story, but and there's a lot of nuance and interesting things that happened in there. And yet I do want to back up to one thing that I think that our viewers will really relate to, and that is that you committed to doing something every day, which was meditation. And
Yeah,
you have ADHD, right?
I do.
And so you're
Yes,
actually diagnosed with that. You know, most creatives, though, I think feel that even if they've never had a diagnosis, they're like, ooh, shiny, right? Squirrel,
yep,
right? That kind of thing is constantly going on in creatives' lives. So
totally.
how I'm really curious about this idea about how you said, okay, every day I can do that.
And I'm so glad that you're picked up on this. And by the way, she didn't just you know, got me out of the closet. I talk very openly that I have ADHD, so it's not a big problem. And I actually feel I proudly talk about it because I feel like there's so much negativity about labels and, so many beliefs about what you're capable or not capable of doing or being when you have ADHD. And so this is why I tend to be very vocal about it. And I think that this was a turning point, not just into my spirituality, but my mindset and my development in all kinds of ways for that particular reason. Because, there's this component that I like to talk about that is called broken agreements. And so we often think about broken agreements when somebody else promises something and then they don't show up. And then we're upset, like that they broke their agreement. But the most important broken agreements are the ones that we break with ourselves, because they have such a tremendous impact in our sense of self and our self-esteem and our ability to believe in what we're capable of doing. And so having ADHD, I had a long history of broken agreements, right? So for somebody to tell me, you're going to do this every day, I was like, I don't even know if I brush my teeth every day. Like at that point, I was like, I don't even know if I do that every day. And so, but Jean, I think that, and I have a good friend of mine that says, when the pain becomes great enough, we are pushed to make changes, right? And so I think that I was definitely at that place of being brought down to my knees. I was desperate. I had tried everything. I'd worked with like 9 different professional people, and I thought, this sounds cool because it's something that doesn't rely on other people. It just relies on me. And so I said, okay. But here's what I did, and I will just abbreviate this story, but I think it's important because you asked me, is I didn't say, I'm going to do this every day for the rest of my life. I did not do that, okay? And I'm going to say this again. I did not say, I'm going to do this every day for the rest of my life. I didn't feel I could. I feel like having ADHD and maybe some other psychological, like I always think that I'm a little bit like psychologically claustrophobic. I have a hard time making commitments, right? So this is a big commitment. And so what I said was, I'm going to do this for the next week. And I'm going to do it for the next week for 5 minutes at a time. So I picked a number that felt doable enough. And then I picked a short interval. Right? And then I said, I'm going to do this every week, every day this week for 5 minutes. And then at the end of the week, I said, good job. Hey, I did it for a whole week. I'm going to do it for the next week. And next week, I'm going to do 6 minutes or 7 minutes, and that was 8 years ago, I think 7.5 years ago, 8 years ago. And now I meditate every single day for almost an hour, anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour every morning. Wow. And 15 minutes every evening.
That's really amazing. And, I'm curious if you're here, if you kind of relate to that broken agreements pattern, because I think all of us, and especially in this creative world, I think that this is something that we have big dreams and we have big ideas. And then when we don't know how to do that, then we kind of get in our head like, well, I can't even make a commitment for today, right? To something new or something else like that. So if that feels familiar, the broken agreements, I'd love for you to say cheer, because today's the day that something's going to shift, right?
Maybe I can just inspire you to believe that when you choose to make a commitment and you make it reasonable enough and not threatening enough, then you can do it. Because there is a piece about, and I will talk about this as a psychologist, anytime that we want to make big changes, our subconscious mind has this part of us that is a protector part. And anytime that we think that we're going to make a big change and we say we're going to make a big change, that protector part rises up to create a whole lot of resistance because its whole job is to protect and to keep everything as is, right? And so there's all this fear about, and so we have to kind of trick that protector part and be kind of sneaky about it. And we have to go kind of behind the scenes and be like, we're just going to do this for a week, right? And then that protector part would be like, okay, yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
you know?
There we go. So it's true. So Joy says, Elena, you are total evidence of the extraordinary being possible while living through ADHD. So beautiful, yes.
Thank you.
Brilliant. And Angie says, creating momentum. Yes, awesome. And she also says, I totally relate to your story. Yep. Broken promises to self. Yep, yep, yep. Kaizen. Yeah, Kaizen. Beautiful. Yeah,
Thank you.
and I think that this is it because you are also an artist and you are also a performer and you are
Mhm.
also a, a, a coach and a mentor, and helping people move through those things are things that you have done. Like it's not just you saying, I learned this theory and then, like I experiment on people. You
I
truly
experiment. I'd probably say I'm like the ultimate Renaissance woman.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that. Okay, so this is what we
And
said. This is what
I
we
just want
said.
to say one thing,
Yes, go ahead.
because I want to encourage those of you that are relating to the ADHD part, okay? So I just want to say one thing about that. Um, a lot of times my clients ask me, like, how do you know so much about so many different things? Because, you know, their knowledge is all over the place. And I say, it's because I have ADHD. And people always kind of wait for me to be like, haha, just joking. But I'm not joking. You know, I know all those things because I have ADHD and because I have learned to use that sense of curiosity and wonder to learn all of these things and then apply the consistency and the discipline to actually see it through. And so, if you think that you have ADHD, if you struggle with that, then know that it's really just about working with your brain to using that curiosity to then develop all kinds of knowledge and expertise in all kinds of areas.
I
So
love
I
that.
just wanted to.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for going deeper on that. And of course, we have a pretty compressed time today to talk about a bunch of deep things. And we said, this is what we said we were going to talk about was attention, awareness, and agency, and how to deal with uncertainty and how those things manage that. And of course, I feel like we've kind of touched on the attention piece, which is
Mhm.
this idea of where do you focus and how do you make a commitment to yourself. And when you have an idea, like sticking with it for just a short period of time. I love that. Anything else
Mhm.
that you want to add about attention, or shall we move to awareness?
Yeah, I do. I feel like so we're not totally off topic because in some ways, what's fascinating is that part of having ADHD is that it creates a lot of chaos inside of your head. And so you have to learn to deal with uncertainty. So it's interesting because right now we are living in a world that is creating a lot of uncertainty. And so, in a strange way, I feel grateful that I have learned to deal with the sense of uncertainty throughout my life, because I feel like I can now share and expand some of these tools to share with everybody else when we have felt that we had certainty before and now, like, the world's changed and the rug has been pulled from under our feet and things are in a constant state of flux. And so I want to just talk a little bit about this uncertainty piece. And to me, part of this is about building internal resiliency, right? And resiliency, I think about, there's two types of resilience. One is the adaptive resilience, which is the type of reactive resilience, which is like we are going to react to the situation. We're going to bounce back. We're going to come back from whatever wipeout that we have experienced. And I think that we are a little bit more familiar with that, and course, this is a topic that's very near and dear because it's been a theme in my life. My dissertation was about resilience. Um, but then there's also this piece about adaptive resilience and adaptive resiliency, which means that we are able to adapt. A friend of mine had this statement that said, that would, how did they say it? The person who's able to be more flexible wins, right? The more flexibility you have, the easier things will be. And I think that this is what adaptive resilience is all about, right? The more that we cling to the old, the more that we try to like hold on to things, keep things being really rigid, then the harder things will be. When we think about like bamboo, part of the reason why bamboo is so great is because it's not just strong, but it's flexible. So it doesn't really just snap, right? And so what we're really needing to build internally, especially when we're dealing with a world that is so uncertain, is adaptive resilience. And so this is where these three concepts of attention, awareness, and agency come in. So attention, we talked a little bit about what we are paying attention to, what are we tuning into, what are we focusing, and that most of my clients hear me say, where attention goes, energy flows. So whatever you are attending to is going to get magnified, right? But the thing of it is that we are not present. We don't spend enough time cultivating a sense of presence, of being really tuned in and paying attention to what is happening moment to moment with ourselves and our bodies, with the people that we are communicating, with the tasks that we are engaging in. It's like we're constantly running and or worried or problem solving or 500 different bubbles, except for being tuned into the present moment, which I feel like, even though we can say like, oh yeah, I know what attention is, I often wonder, like, do we actually know what attention really is? Because do we ever like spend that time? Because what I see is that people start getting like antsy, like, okay, well, let's move on. Like, what's next? What's next? What's next? Instead of like being here now and enjoying the
Well,
present
yeah,
moment.
I find this really interesting. So Angie says, my first grade teacher called me a daydreamer, which I think is really interesting because in the end, even in first grade, focusing on what I desire in my field, that's what's happening. And, inside of our 40 days, 40 nights, we've been doing this daily daydreaming, which is about focusing and giving
Totally.
attention
Totally.
to that inner voice and not dismissing it, saying I've got stuff to do or anything else, but saying, no, this is the only thing we got. Let's hang out here. We're going to daydream. We're going to give attention to that thing because it gives us flexibility, right? It gives us that peace, that exactly what you're talking about is this piece of flexibility by giving focus and attention in that moment.
Well, and what I love about it, and what I think it's really important, is that you're focusing that attention on what you're wanting to bring into your life and what you're wanting to create, right? So, and I'm not wanting to like get people upset, but the last week during the whole uh, election, right? Like I heard so many people being like, I couldn't sleep, and I'm like, why couldn't you sleep? You had already voted. Like there was nothing that you were going to be able to do or change, whether you were asleep or awake, right? Like, but there's so many people that were like, well, what if blah blah blah, right? Like their attention was going toward the fears of all of the worst case scenarios, right? And this is what happens to us in our minds. I always kind of joke that our minds are a little bit like Velcro for negative things and like Teflon for positive things, right? So then we like center our attention on usually our fears or negative things that have happened, and then we loop and we keep going and going and going. What I love about what you're doing is that you are actually shifting the attention to be on what is it that we want to create? What do we want to bring into our world, and what do we want to bring into our field? Which, by the way, is probably one of the first technologies that we can employ to start creating a greater sense of grounding and a greater sense of certainty into our particular field.
Absolutely. So Joanne was just adding that she just wrote a blog post about enjoying this moment, which is,
Love it.
so important that you be present. Exactly. This is what we live in. And I love that, inside of this community, we have a lot of people who are meditators, being in the present moment and that kind of thing. And yet I also find that as creatives, we kind of forget to do the wisdom that we already know, right? We already know. Oh yeah, I know to do that. Okay, here we are now.
Well, and
Beautiful.
it's
Yeah.
what I think it's funny, and I don't know who said this, that they were called a daydreamer, right?
Angie,
So
yeah, yeah.
Angie, that you were called a daydreamer, where um, your teacher was making a judgment about the fact that you weren't paying attention to the thing that she wanted you to pay attention, but you actually were paying attention to the thing that you wanted to pay attention to. So, I think that that's also a way to think about it, right? And that when we can actually um, be tuned in and then channel that to creating what we want, then that's power.
Of course. Of course. I love that. And so as we shift then from this attention piece into awareness, what is that piece?
So they are obviously interrelated, right? But awareness is really, um, I guess the best way for me to describe it is like being able to actually get into the moment and be connected to the sensations that you're
Mhm.
experiencing moment to moment. Like how many times do people sit while working? I mean, eat while working, right? So they're scarfing down food while they're like in front of their computer. They're like eating while they're driving, right? And so I'm like, are you even like noticing what you're eating? Are you even like smelling or like tasting like all of the different flavors? Like, are you focused on the pleasurable sensations of this thing that you're eating? It's like because we are in this constant rush to accomplish more and to do more things, right? Is that we are not able to really be fully present in the awareness of what is happening moment to moment. And here's the thing why awareness matters. Um, One is if we are not aware of what is happening inside of ourselves, so not just noticing what we're experiencing, but also noticing how we're feeling, noticing what we are um, sensing or picking up on, like how many of you know, like what is your red flag to tell you that you are upset or that you are angry? How do you know that you are angry before you are actually like, you know, blowing up and screaming and yelling and whatever? How do you know when you're sad? How do you know when, right? So when we are aware of our cues, then we're able to take care of ourselves. That also opens up our ability to then be aware and have some sensory acuity to be aware of what other people are experiencing or sensing, and then be able to respond, right? And be like, hey, you seem kind of distracted, what's going on, right? Or like, you seem kind of sad, what's happening, right? And it's not just what we see, it's what we hear. Sometimes it's what I sense. Sometimes I sense people that are not even in front of me, and I might text a friend and be like, you seem kind of down, like, you know what's going on? Or here's something to cheer you up. I have no idea what's going on, right? But I sense. And we cannot connect to that, um, to to ourselves. We cannot connect to each other. We cannot connect to getting divine truths and guidance if we don't have that sense of awareness.
Right, which ultimately then connection through our body is connection to that intuitive sense and those intuitive hits, and then ultimately synchronicity and all those other things that start to show up. Angie added about her school experiences. Yeah, she was bored, the top of her class, right? Knew how to read already, knew how to do the multiplication. She's like, I totally get it. Why would you pay attention to a teacher who's saying something that's boring? You know, I think that that's really fascinating.
It's great. And
Yeah.
you've already done that, been there, done that, on to the next thing.
Exactly. I think first graders are pretty brilliant. They pretty much know what they need and want. They just have no control over their situation. And so,
Well, and I will say this also, not validation if that has been, not just for validation if that has been your experience, but those of you that are parents, this is a very common situation with children when they're gifted. A lot of times, gifted children may not do as well because they're actually bored. And so being able to recognize that sometimes they actually already know that and they're just not doing well because they're bored. And so then they're missing the cues, And so I guess that's another component of it.
beautiful, beautiful. Well, okay, so that was awareness. How about agency?
So as you can see, these things are relating, they're like stepping one, linking one to the other, right? So we cannot become aware if we're not paying attention, plain and simple, right? I recently traveled. I just came back from Sedona, which was amazing. And it's amazing to go through the airport and to see the amount of people who are, right, like on their phone, like, like, and so it's like, how are you gonna have any kind of awareness about where you're at, about other people, about like, it's really fascinating, like we live in a connected but very disconnected world. And so, the part about agency is that agency is about ability to choose. Ultimately, the greatest sense of the thing that gives us the greatest, like the best antidote, I guess, for uncertainty is empowerment, right? Is to feel empowered and feel like you are capable of making choices that you are able to control and ground you, right? So agency is our ability to recognize that you are co-creating with the universe and that you are the chooser of your experience. Now, I'm going to use COVID as the ultimate example, okay? COVID happened, for a lack of better word, and it's affected the entire world. I don't think that there's a single person that it's not been affected by it. However, the actual experience that people have had through this pandemic has been incredibly different. Like it's been as varied as there are people. And partly it has to do with this idea of agency, of recognizing that we are making choices moment to moment. And we are choosing what we are paying attention to. We are choosing what stories we're reading. We are choosing, how long we're, you know, reading stories or watching the news. We are choosing where our attention is going. We are choosing how to spend our time. We are choosing what story to make out of this whole situation. And so there's so many choices that we're making moment to moment that we don't recognize that we are making, And so to me, agency is really about empowerment and about like really becoming very aware of how much we have the power to choose moment to moment the experience that we're having, how we're going to feel, the thoughts that we're going to think, the way that we're going to spend our time, the conversations that we're going to have, rather than being focused on all of the things that we cannot control, right? Because there are parts that are out of our control. And my mantra, I guess, is the more that you try to control that which is uncontrollable, the more out of control you're going to feel. I'm going to say this again. The more that you try to control the uncontrollable, the more out of control you're going to feel. And so the more that we choose to pay attention to things that we cannot control, the more uncertainty and out of control we feel, right? And the more likely it is that we're going to spiral. Versus recognizing what is within my field of control, what is within my field of influence and agency. And can I choose to focus my attention on those things and grow those things so that I can create a sense of grounding and internal resilience?
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I love how you walked through all of those things and this real piece of connection to science, really, how our brains work, like that's how our
Mhm.
brains work,
Right. Mhm.
and acknowledging that we also have a spiritual life, a a choice to make in the world about how we do things, how we interact with others, how we see our unity, all those kind of things. And
100%.
I'm interested then, you and I had this conversation like, I want you to come on, will you be on the expert interviews? And when we saw that one of the openings was 11:11, we're like, okay, we have to go there. Like, this is the cool thing. And so I know that you have some insights about the meanings of these kind of gateways and portals of 11:11. Would you share some of that?
Sure. You know, I want to say that I don't consider myself to be the expert at this. I think that there's lots of people that have all kinds of knowledge and insights. I am trained in it's called the Soul Code. I do what's called Soul Code readings, which is based on the ancient science of numerology that helps people discover their life paths and their spiritual paths and how these things intersect. And so I think that 11:11 is it's powerful because from the science of numerology, 11 is a master number. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a very quick. Many of you are probably super familiar with this, but for those of you that know nothing about it, I'm just gonna do a very quick. In the science of numerology, each number represents something, and the numbers go from 1 to 9. So 1 is the number of creation, and 9 is the number of completion and healing and ascension. And so whenever we start getting into double numbers like 11, 11, 12, 12, 13, 13, things like that, then we know that it's basically the energies of that particular number that are magnified in a huge way. So 11 is a master number because it's like a master creator, because it has basically, 1 is leadership. It's starting new things. It's like opening up the doors to do something and manifest whatever it is that we're setting our intention. When we have 11:11, is like we have a double master number. And so if you can imagine what that does, right, then it totally magnifies the energies that are contained within that particular number, right? To me, 11:11 has been also one of those numbers that it's about creation, but it's also about ascension. It's about us being able to be guided to know that, like, what is the right path for our spiritual evolution. And we are all sort of in this process of moving from the consciousness of 3D to the consciousness of 5D, which to me is a lot about learning how to um, love unconditionally and love unconditionally. And it starts with ourselves, and then it starts with other people, and then coming from that energy of love to then be able to create the world that we want to create.
That's
So
amazing. And I have to say, while you're talking that, there's this yellow butterfly that is in front of this window. It's not stopping. Like it has been there the entire time you've been talking about this. This he's still there. He's still like right in front of my window, just
that's
flitting
awesome.
all over the place. And
That's
I'm just
awesome.
so for our master support today of the power of the transformational power of the butterfly, which of course is pretty amazing, and then add that to our 11/11/2020 heart opening portal. I think that this is truly an ultimate place for us to hang out in this kind of creation, and and a lot in what you've been saying about choosing, right? This moment to moment choice that we actually have sovereignty over. Like we have that much ability to manage being the universe.
So there's so many things in what you said that was so beautiful. So butterflies, whenever butterflies are fluttering around, and I don't know if this is something that you've heard, like what I have always been told, it means that there's a lot of love. That butterflies flying around you mean lots of love. And so it's so funny because I was like starting to talk about this unconditional love, and I saw your face just like beaming, and then it's like the butterflies coming in. Because ultimately, like 11/11, well, so I want to say something that I think is really important. I feel like um, whether you feel it or you don't feel it, whether you believe it or you not believe it, um, each one of you is a beautiful, amazing um, spirit being that has chosen to be in this world at this time. Like each one of you has this incredible power, has incredible light, and it is not a coincidence that you are here now, because we are making this really huge transition, and we are, sort of standing at the brink of really making massive history and massive evolution in so many different areas of our world. And so, I know that a lot of times people are like the world's falling apart, but think about it. I was just looking at my Skype. It says, you know, there's new opportunities in the chaos. Before something is created, things need to disintegrate. Before, something new can come in, old stuff needs to be let go of. Old stuff needs to vanish and fall apart. And so all of what we are in the midst of that demolition. All of the things that we're experiencing need to fall apart and fall away, because we need to create room for this new world. And each of us agreed to be here now. And so to me, 11/11 is very much opening up the portal of what is it that we want to, what is the world that we want to bring? What do we want to be focusing our attention to? Are we wanting to stay focused on the blame and shame and the problems and all the what ifs? Do we want to like shift our attention to like, how can we come together in unity? Because the number one is about leadership, and it's about beginnings, and it's about unity, oneness, harmony, coming together. And so when you have that number multiplied, magnified 4 times, then, clearly it is a call for all of us to be linking arms and be coming together and be weaved in through this energy of unconditional love that starts with us.
That was an incredible wrap up to our talk. And thank you so much. Now you all know why I love Elena and how she puts things in such a poetic, beautiful way, and the yellow butterfly letting all that love packed right there. Um, you are going to share something beautiful with our
Yeah. Yeah.
viewers.
So there's a couple of things that I want to share with you. I mean, because obviously I'm talking about these things, um, and why unconditional love starts with us, but it's not just for us, right? And so it starts with us so that we can magnify these attention, awareness, agency, so that then we can go out and serve others, so that we can link arms. I found, um, obviously being a psychologist, I observe people, like I can't help it. But one of the things that I have observed is that for whatever reason, we tend to give the benefit of the doubt more to people that we don't know than to people that are closest to, right? We tend to take things less personally to things that people do that are outside of us than to people that are very close to us. And so, partly it's the expectation, but I think it's kind of backwards, right? And like, why is it that we're not extending this piece about not taking things personal with our kids, with our partners, with our best friends, and recognize that, like, hey, they're human, they're imperfect, they might be having a day. Like, it's not about me, right? And instead it's like, oh, I can't believe that they just did that, blah, blah, right? And so, and I'm sharing this piece because I feel like when we start being able to be kind to ourselves. And so I'm going to wrap this up to the very beginning, the broken agreements. We are, um, we don't like making commitments because we don't want to set ourselves up for failure. And we are ashamed and embarrassed about those things because we are judging ourselves so harshly. And consequently, then we project that judgment and we judge others about the same things that we judge ourselves. And so if you think about anybody that like really irritates you and irks you, it's probably because they do something that you do or that you've done that you really dislike about yourself. Okay. And so that part of doing this unconditional self-love is about learning to have grace and compassion with yourself and understanding, because when we truly can accept and love ourselves despite of our shortcomings, we're able to extend that grace and compassion and empathy and understanding to other people, right? And when we can extend it to those people that we love and live with, and then we can extend it to like the next circle over and our friends and our communities. And, then perhaps we can start building a fabric of like love and compassion and grace and empathy that guides us towards peace and union rather than war, right? So there's the thing that I want to offer you is both a meditation that is it's called your diamond self. And it's a meditation that helps you connect to your diamond self. I find that when we tell kids, like, be your best self, they always know what that is, you know, but sometimes as adults, we start doubting it. But like our higher self, our best self is always our best version of ourselves. And we get disconnected to that when we are very much in judgment. And so what I want to give you is a meditation that is, about connecting to your diamond self. Because in my opinion, based on my experience, the more that we can practice sitting still and meditating, the greater our ability to increase our attention, our awareness, our connectivity, and our agency increases, right? So we can feel more empowered. The second, it's something that probably in itself would be worth about $500, which is an exercise that I call the belief closet. And what this is, right? It's an amazing it's an amazing exercise. And why I'm giving this away is because ultimately I know that whatever we are experiencing in our life, it's being run by unconscious beliefs. When we don't believe that we deserve enough, when we don't believe that we are lovable, where we, any of these core negative beliefs end up running the show, end up running how we respond to others, how we respond to situations, and what we ultimately manifest into our lives. And so to me, it's like if we can learn how to change those beliefs at the unconscious level and then install new beliefs so that we can then create beliefs that are more in alignment to the desires that we want, then that's the that's the recipe for success. So a whole lot of my work, it's based on helping people shift their unconscious beliefs and rewiring and reprogramming new beliefs so that they can create a new reality. This is just one of the tools that I use, and one that can be done on your own. And so I wanted to be able to offer it to people so that then they can do it. But it's pretty amazing. I think that you've experienced it, and
Yes.
totally worth
It's
doing.
that, yeah, totally incredible. And do you have a direct link
I
for
do
that? Or am
have
I
a
going to
link.
drop it in? Okay. Can you
So
tell
the
me that?
link, it's tinyurl.com
tinyurl.com
/ diamond dash self.
diamond dash self. Okay.
So easy enough.
Add that
And
to
you guys, if you have questions and you want to put your questions in the chat,
Oh,
I'll come back because
I
I
put
can't
it
see the
wrong.
chat. But
Right.
I will come back and then I'll answer questions. If you have questions or comments, I would be more than happy to do that.
Okay. I I totally put the wrong. I missed the Y in
Here.
tiny.
Ah,
Here it
I
comes.
was
There we
like,
go.
I'm happy to
There it
copy it
goes.
and share it with
tinyurl.com.
you.
Okay. Beautiful. I got it.
Oh, okay, good.
It's on the
Well, now you
screen
have it
and
both.
it's also
Nice.
in the
Now you
chat.
have
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Got it. Here we are. Oh my gosh, thank
Perfect.
you. That is so generous. And really, you will love, love, love these. You'll love Dr. Elena too, like I do. And any last things you'd like to share with our audience as we say goodbye? And
I just want to share that there's this card that I have here as a reminder for me that I feel like I want to share with all light workers, because sometimes it's easy to get discouraged, and I just want to remind you, you are here for an important mission. Like, you are here to bring light into the world, and so whichever way in which that is, whether it's through art, through your speaking, through your writing, through your teaching, whatever it is that you do in the world, go do it, because the world really needs it. And so the saying, it says, in order to awaken the world to the light, I must not be afraid to shine.
that's amazing. Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And I'm just so happy to be your friend. And
Oh,
I can't wait for people to experience your work. And of course, if you have any additional questions for Elena, you can post them here. You can find us on Messenger as well and send us messages there.
totally.
And thank you. Thank you so much for coming here and sharing your amazing wisdom with this
Such
whole
an
group.
honor. Such an honor and a delight. And I love you all. And wish you an amazing day of opening the gates to manifest what you want to bring into the world.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. We'll see you all.
Bye.